Like ved Kanariøyene, på Afrikas fastland, lærer Europa sine egne kortsiktige interesser gå foran prinsipper om menneskerettighet og fred. Velkommen til SANDFAST, vår podkast om Vest-Sahara, den siste kolonien på det afrikanske kontinent. Se for deg at du setter deg ned i sanden i en myk sanddyne. Det er natt, mørkt, og over deg ser du tusener av stjerner. 50 meter nedenfor deg har noen rigget opp et lerret og store høyttalere. Du er midt i Sahara-ørkenen, og ved siden av deg sitter hundrevis av forventningsfulle flyktninger. Du skal se på film. Filmen introduseres av en internasjonal skuespillerkjendis. FiSahara er ikke en vanlig filmfestival. Den spesielle arrangement har pågått hvert år siden 2003. Den ble startet av saharawiske flyktninger selv og av spansk sivilsamfunn og fremme menneskerettigheter og kultur. I dag har vi med oss lederen av festivalen, Marria Carríon. Marria er journalist spesialisert på menneskerettigheter. Hun er også leder av Madrid-basert organisasjon som arbeider med kultur og rettigheter i Vest-Sahara. Marria, thank you for joining me, and I know you are tired. You just arrived from the camps yesterday. I'm really glad that you are with me today for this episode about FiSahara. So, Marria, what is FiSahara? What does that mean as a word, and what is the festival, and how did you get into this project?
Hello, Azria. Greetings to the audience, and thank you so much for dedicating this program to FiSahara. Well, it's a human rights and cultural film festival that takes place in the Sahrawi refugee camps. Obviously, film is at the center of it, but it's a lot more than just film. FiSahara has been going on since 2003. It's become many different things, but it started off as a festival that would bring attention to the plight of the Sahrawi people. And I was lucky enough to be able to go to the first edition in 2003. And it seemed like people were just performing magic, even though you could see them running around where their brows sweaty and working 24 hours, you still felt like there was a magical component. It's like, how does this come together in a refugee camp where there's no electricity, very little infrastructure, and all of a sudden these huge screens emerge from the sand, and there's this huge audience in front of them watching films. So I fell in love with the project from day one. I just couldn't imagine how it was put together, and I could not possibly imagine that one day I would be given the honor of actually being its executive director. FiSahara has become a festival that specializes particularly on films about Western Sahara, and more screens films made by Sahrawis. And considering that in 2003 film did not exist as an art form, and now we're opening festivals with Sahrawi made films, that's just an unbelievable feat, and it really shows how Sahrawi people embrace and are so flexible towards new ideas, new means of struggle. So FiSahara brings general audience members from the outside. It brings journalists. That's a very important component of the festival, to be able to bring in people who can then tell this story to a larger audience. It brings in filmmakers. It brings in human rights activists. It's so many things, really. And it's also accompanied by a cultural festival. So we have what is called Le Frig, which is a cultural fair with these traditional tents or haimas, where people can visit and they can learn firsthand about traditions such as storytelling, or the making of carpets, or tea making, and so on. So it's something that both nurtures the Sahrawi people themselves, because they are doing this in community, and they also connecting with people from the outside. But it also is like a window from the camps to the world, where visitors can stay with families, they can watch the films, they can learn about the history firsthand and so on, and then they go back to their communities, and hopefully they stay connected and engaged with the struggle.
You mentioned like few time raise awareness about the issue, and that now you traveled finally to the camps and you brought with you media. Why using film for raise awareness? Why not, doing the traditional way, like demonstrations, which I know people do in Madrid and different places, but why film? That's first part of my question. I mean, and the second one, I think some people will be like curious. It's refugee camps, but there is also film production. So we can speak maybe about the technical parts, how the films are produced, where, who is producing them.
Okay, so film, and I think this is no news to your audience, a good film will transport you wherever the places that the film talks about and the issue and the stories, right? Storytelling has always been one of the best ways of informing people about something that can be generalized. People empathize much more with a story, or may not have time to read a book, or may not have time to really find out why a protest is taking place. The Sahrawi people have used diplomacy as a key, but diplomats cannot enter certain spaces, or it's harder for them to enter certain spaces because their job is where it is. And then there's culture, and through music, through theater, through poetry, and of course through film, you reach new audiences, and also you convey these stories in a very powerful way. I think it's worked really well. And even without FiSahara existing, many organizations were already, in associations in solidarity with Sahrawi people, were already using film as a tool for discussion and awareness raising, because it allows people to soak in a story and an issue and then go further and discuss it. I just want to give you one example, and it actually involves a colleague and friend in Norway, which is who is Eric Hagen from the West-Sahara Resource Watch. We collaborated with the Human Rights Film Festival in Oslo, and they were nice enough to dedicate a window to FiSahara a few years ago. We had one screening in particular. I mean, this was amazing because, for instance, we screened The Runner, and The Runner is a story about a Sahrawi runner, professional runner, who runs with his Sahrawi flag, Salah Maidan, and takes his cause wherever he goes. And he really does open new doors, because the sports world and the people attracted to athletics and sports are not necessarily those you might find in a political meeting, etc.
Yeah.
You might, but you may not. There's a lot of young and new people there. We also took The Runner to Vilnius, to the film festival there in Lithuania, with Eric, with Salah, and with Mohamed Haddad, who at the time was the Polisario's representative before MINURSO, which is the peacekeeping force in Western Sahara, the UN peacekeeping force. What happened is that on the one hand, Salah was able to reach new audiences because he ran the 10K, the national 10K race that happened to be during the festival. And so sports media became interested in him, and he was able to get a large crowd of young athletes to the screening of The Runner to learn about Western Sahara. But also another screening, which is The Sons of the Clouds, which is a film by Javier Bardem, which portrays sort of the endless diplomatic struggle for justice. And you see it going nowhere on the screen. At that particular roundtable, they had also invited someone from a higher up member of the foreign ministry who actually came. And during the audience had no idea about Western Sahara. They came in not knowing where it was, what it was about. But as they watched the film, you could tell that they were extremely engaged. And by the end of the film, they really wanted the foreign minister to explain Lithuania's position. Sorry, Azria, that was my little dog Jazz, who just rushed in through the door to greet me. And I think that's the value that film brings to the struggle, as well as just talking about human rights with a film like Three Stolen Cameras, for instance, people can learn what it's like to be under occupation, what it's like to be an at-risk filmmaker, subject to all kinds of violence and surveillance, the fact that there's no freedom of expression, and the fact that as a filmmaker, because the Western Sahara is so close to the outside, and the Moroccan government does not allow international media or monitors to come in, that you are the only one who actually, as a witness, can film and share this with the world. And I think those are, very powerful tools. You don't have to spend much time talking about what's going on when you can actually show it through a 30, 60 or 90-minute film.
And as you said, like Sahrawis, actually, they can't travel to tell their story. So it's the film which like doing that. And if you are sitting in Madrid or in Oslo or in Stockholm, and you learn about their stories, you put face on the Sahrawis. Not the same if you read an article where it says a Sahrawi. But my second part of question, we're talking about the production. As I said, many people will be sitting now, are this film made in Madrid or, in New York, or is it actually in the camps, or who is making them? And you mentioned about the school, audiovisual in the camps, which actually in my camp, where I come from.
The school is called the Abidin Kaid Saleh Audiovisual School, and it opened its doors in 2011. It was born out of workshops that FiSahara offered every year for young people who wanted to, well, anyone really, but it was mostly young people going to them, who wanted to learn sort of the basics of filmmaking. And the workshops usually would end up producing a short film that would get screened at the end of the festival. So it was a really fast process of putting together something, coming up with an idea, a story, filming it, editing it, and bam, it was on the screen, right? And these young people said, this is not enough. We really love filmmaking. A lot of them had been going to FiSahara since they were children and watching life come alive on the screen, and they wanted to also learn how to do that. So through donations and huge efforts on the ground by the Ministry of Culture of the Rast, the film school was built. It's a beautiful structure in Bujdur, the refugee camp. And basically it trains young people in how to make film. So it's now 10 years old. It's celebrating its 10th anniversary. And the film school has gone through many changes, and also has been, the fact that it exists still as a project really shows the dedication and belief that young people in the camps have towards film, because there was a time when there was practically no funding. People were not, it's a boarding school because it caters to young people from all over the camps, and some of them are very remote. They can't go in and out the same day. But they were in a situation where there was hardly any food, and still they were there every day, showed up every day, class to learn. The film school has now become the center of FiSahara. I think this is where a project really, we can say, is completely successful, because it is now, I won't say 100%, because I think the circumstances in the camps are such that people still need a team internationally to make this work, because of funding and because of logistics and so on. But really the heart of the project is now on the ground. So on the one hand, what the creation of the school has led to is the creation of a new art form, Sahrawi cinematography. And there are many films about Western Sahara that have been made over the years by filmmakers from all over the world who would come, visit, get interested, and do something. But this unique perspective and important and really true perspective of Sahrawi life has to be coming from Sahrawi filmmakers. And we see that difference. Maybe these films are not as polished at the beginning, don't have as many means, but as Brahim Chagaf, one of the former students who then became an instructor, said, our mothers came to the camps and they built the camps with their hands. And we can do the same with film. We can make film with the stones and the sand and whatever is available to us in the camps. And that's exactly what that is. You don't need a lot of resources. What you need is a good story to tell and a few tools to tell it with, right? So now the film school is producing wonderful work. Sahara, we made short films of traveling the world. They're going to different film festivals. They're earning awards. We're really proud of how Sahrawi film is now pioneering. And there are 3 wonderful films that are making the rounds. And one is Tofa, and one is In Searching for Tirfas, and the other is The Price of Beauty. And all 3 of these films really tell the stories from Sahrawi perspectives, such as what it was like for Sahrawi women to escape from the Western Sahara when it was first invaded, and how they built the camps. Another is a story about youth unemployment, and it's actually a comedy, believe it or not, but it really works. And the other is a story about how Sahrawi women are subject to a lot of beauty standards that makes them consume products that are very hazardous to their health. And all 3 we screened last Friday at a special edition of a one night of FiSahara in Boujdour, in your camp, in your community, Azria. And it was a packed house, and it was just a wonderful experience to sort of be back. And at this event, we announced both a local edition of FiSahara, which will be the last week of November, without the big international presence, but really we can say will be the first FiSahara during the pandemic. And then later on, and then we will have in December a Madrid FiSahara, a 3-day event to raise awareness here in Madrid about Western Sahara with Sahrawi made films and other films and roundtables.
Amazing. And I hope people, they're writing down the date. I mean, it's very impressive that it's not films that they are produced in the camps are not about only like the cause or raising awareness about the political situation, like occupation of Western Sahara, but also trying to fix or find a solution to local problems in the camps, as the beauty standards, as you said, or unemployment, because being in the camps for such a long time, it also has many negative consequences. My next question, Marria. I'm not expert on organizing festivals, but I have been to some film festivals here in Oslo, and it looks so big and complicated. I guess organizing this sort of festivals entails other challenges than doing it in, I mean, FiSahara compared to festivals in Europe. There must be so many challenges or different type of challenges.
FiSahara is complicated and simple at the same time. It is complicated because you need energy sources. Basically, there are blackouts, as you know, often in the camps, and so you're always needing backup sources of energy, be it generators. We do have a solar-powered cinema, which we're now fixing so that it can be used for remote screenings. But the energy source situation is important, not just to power the screen, but also the lighting and everything else and the sound involved in putting on a festival of these proportions. Fortunately, the people who are putting this together and who are doing the local production are experts at problem solving. The other day, when we were planning for this one evening of screening, we woke up with a little suspended dust in the air, and everyone looked at the horizon and said, we may have a sirocco coming, we may have some wind coming. So when the students at the film school were preparing for the screening, they had a plan A, they had a plan B, and they had a plan C. Plan A and plan B both involved an outdoor screening, but it really depended on the direction and speed of wind at the time of setup. And then plan C was to move everything indoors. We've had siroccos during FiSahara before that have toppled all of the haimas, the tents in the cultural festival and everything else. And FiSahara has had to be basically rebuilt in the middle of the festival. You can also have, as you know, Azria, in the driest place on earth, you can have flooding occur. So you have to be prepared for that as well. What if it rains? The first year, 100% of the projectionists got sick the second day. So there are so many potential problems that you have to prepare for, and you have to act on your feet. And you have to basically have a very well-greased team on the ground. But as I say, and especially because now everything basically production-wise is done locally, and especially by the film school, which is now headed by a miracle worker called Tiba Chagaf, who's really an amazing person, who's been with FiSahara from day one as well. It's something that, as I said, when I first went to FiSahara in 2003 and I watched it take place, I'm like, I have no idea how this is put together. I even was assigned to do an evaluation externally for FiSahara in 2012. And I spent a significant amount of time interviewing people and watching how the festival got put together. And my conclusion was, there's a part of this I don't get, like how they're able to do this, how they're able to overcome enormous challenges and problems. So I don't know. It's just, if the Sahrawi people can put on a marathon and music festivals and art festivals, and you name it, in the camps, then of course they're able to put on also a film festival.
Okay, Marria, I know you are tired. You just arrived yesterday from the camps. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And I recommend everyone to go and check out Film Festival FiSahara. Thank you, Marria.
Thank you so much, Azria. And I look forward to seeing you all in FiSahara.
Hvis du vil lære mer om konflikten, gå til vest-sahara.no.